South Canterbury?
No,
or have you hit your limit?
There's not much left. We have always utilised it pretty much full up.
Now, just looking at the maturities that are rolling over in the next few months before the end of October, which was the end of the deposit guarantee scheme.
Yep.
But obviously now you're in the extended guarantee scheme and you want to get those maturities rolling over. How much, what's the size of the task before the beginning of October in terms of how much you have to get rolled over?
Well, it's an interesting question. It moves around every day depending on the maturity and what we're doing on forward rolls. So think of it as roughly $600 to $700 million, somewhere in that vicinity, is left to go. And against that, we have forward rolled about $200 million. What we did was we went out to people and said, look, you've got to, and we did this starting in late May, mid-May, late May, so we're still really getting experience with it. We went out and said, look, it doesn't suit us to wait until a day in June or July and August to find out whether you want to roll or go, because we don't have a lot of options on that day. So will you agree to roll forward? And we've sent out about 20,000 letters. We have a big operation in terms of the debenture book, biggest by far of anyone around. And we've gotten back probably 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 letters, and 2 out of 3 people have agreed to roll forward. So it's a fantastic response rate, a positive response rate. It's still not clear to us what the balance of the 12,000 people would do, so we always have that bit of a mystery. But it's taken about $200 million in round numbers. I'm rounding up a little, 180, and depends on the mail today, have moved forward. So that's a significant plus. We still have new money coming in. We still have realizations from the asset book coming in. So we look ahead June, July, and handle each month. A heck of a lot of that money matures, almost 300 million of it, 300 and some odd million, matures on the last day of the old guarantee, October 11th. And that number has come down substantially. I don't have the full details on it, but people at that maturity seem to be people who are well focused on the guarantee, as you can imagine, having rolled something to the last possible minute of the guarantee. And the response rate is very high, very positive, higher than even the average for rolling forward. So all those are good signs, but we have to take each day, each week, each month as a bit of a mystery.
So really you've still got perhaps 400, 500 million where you need some assurance about a rollover before the end of October, before the beginning of October.
That's right, and against that context, the forward maturity program has produced on some days between $10 and $30 million in the mail of forward rolls, so that knocks it down very quickly. And the traditional rollover of South Canterbury is about a 1/12 of the total book. In other words, a 1-year average life sort of calculation, and that's about $100 million a month. So one would expect that, absent understanding the exact implications of the forward roll, that in July, August, September, October, we still have $300 to $400 million worth of normal rolls to go. It's just not clear how much we've actually positively tampered with that. But it's far from unmanageable, and we're much further ahead than we thought we'd be.
Now, given that you've pretty much maxed out on the senior debt pool that you could use, and you need to bring in new equity, there must be a certain time frame where you need to essentially sell Alan Hubbard's stake or interests in South Canterbury to get enough cash in to keep going.
I think that the projected period is sort of between now and August. And that's the trustees' waiver, which was announced publicly, goes to the end of August. So we're pretty keen on doing this. It's not a many years from now vague thing. We've got some pretty clear targets, and we've got a mandate running, and we've got people in due diligence, and it's all happening.
So, and it's not just a stake. We're talking 100%.
It doesn't. That's uncertain. I doubt it will be 100%. I think that Alan will be going to retain involvement in the company and retain upside in it. The exact nature really depends on what people offer.
And you talked about due diligence. How many people do you have in due diligence?
Well, I don't want to comment on that, but there are more than one party that we're engaged in fairly seriously in the process. And again, nothing to announce. These things range from, it's all sort of incomplete discussions, but we started in February with as many as 14 people who'd expressed some interest. When I say people, entities, and have worked that down into a pretty solid list of people who would be interested. It's not over till it's over, and until things get signed and sealed, nothing to really say, but I really need for people to understand that this is a genuine effort at this point.
And are these banks or other players?
It's a mix.
Right.
I'd say largely other players.
Right. And the other issue that's bubbling around is the end of the extended guarantee period, which is the end of next year. If you're a cynic, you could stand back and say Torchlight and George Kerr are sitting there picking meat off the bones, if you like, of South Canterbury, waiting for things to fall over. And if the government has to step in and rescue the depositors, they're the ones first in line. Do you think there's a risk here that you're being played, if you like, for that inevitable end game where South Canterbury is carved up and the big losers will be the shareholder, Alan Hubbard, the big winners will be Torchlight, and depositors walk away, and of course the other really big loser is the government?
Well, I think that it's a lot more complicated than that. Unfortunately, I'm not a cynic. I mean, I look at the Torchlight involvement as much simpler than that. This is a senior debt facility. If it wasn't Torchlight, it would be somebody else. It really is the kind of tranche of debt that probably should have been rated by a rating agency as such and put out to banks a long time ago. We've not had the time, effort, or conditions to do that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like a first mortgage on the house, and I don't read anything sinister in it. And I think that there are, you can postulate any number of endings, but probably one of the most common would be that someday it will mature and be repaid off, and George will have had a nice rate of return, very limited downside, and he will have stepped in to a situation when other people were stepping away. So good on him.
Great. Oh, thank you very much. Sandy Maier from South Canterbury Finance, the Chief Executive there. That's been another in one of our series of double shot interviews. I'm Bernard Hickey from interest.co.nz.